Our return to the lower 48 was by a different route through the western British Columbia mountains and over 1,200 miles to the U.S. border. From Whitehorse, we backtracked on the Alcan Highway 125 miles to Watson Lake, taking a few minutes to add our Arctic Circle or bus sign to the already 75,000 signs at Signpost Forest. Returning to the lower 48, we wanted to stay as close to the Pacific Ocean as possible to join up with the Pacific Coast Highway in Washington and Oregon. The Cassiar Highway, or Canada 37, is 450 miles long, the most westward north-south highway in Canada and supporting no small towns. This is a sparse highway, although gas, food, and lodging are interspaced from 60 to 100 miles and at both ends of the highway. One wants a spare tire and possibly carry some additional gas or fuel. This highway also provides road access to the Hyder-Stewart towns at the very tip of Alaska. Highway 37 is generally narrower than most two-lane Canadian highways, with little or no shoulders. Generally, the curves are easy, with some long stretches, but no passing lanes. Road surfacing is good to excellent, but expect an occasional gravel break or rough patch of pavement. Watch for very long logging trucks on this highway, and be careful for passing these long rigs. The operator on the side brush hog was shutting down for the day, and he enjoyed talking about the unit. He and his company had made the power cutting head for this loader in the shop last winter, and it was working out quite well, cutting a swath 16 feet wide, making quick work in cutting down small trees and brush along the highway. Continuing on down this scenic highway, there was an interesting Indian campfire style stack of logs to be burned. What a bonfire that would make! Logging is the main business in western British Columbia, and many piles of logs were along the highway waiting to be loaded onto trucks. In several small towns, piles of logs were covering many acres, and this pile probably covered 30 acres. Long three-section logging trucks were a common sight. It would take a skillful driver to negotiate these trucks down some of the logging roads we saw. Logging is the primary industry in British Columbia. We joined up with Highway 16 and followed it eastbound to Prince George, then took Highway 97 almost straight south to Catch Creek, located on a small, high, dry desert plateau. Taking Highway 1 straight south, in a short distance we were back in the tall trees, heavy timber, mountains, and logging. After about 1,200 miles in British Columbia, we came out of the mountains into a wide, fertile valley 50 miles from Vancouver. The large, prosperous farms raised a wide variety of crops, hay, corn, grains, truck garden, dairy, and many other crops. The Blaine, Washington port of entry on the Pacific Ocean is located in a large open park called the Peace Monument Park, with beautiful flowers everywhere. The monument is dedicated to peace between the two countries, and may these gates never be closed. The flowers for the Canadian and the U.S. flags was most impressive, along with many flower gardens scattered throughout the park. The boundary between the United States and Canada is a ditch, as you can see by the metric highway sign on the Canadian side. In 1819, an international agreement provided for the joint Anglo-American occupation of the Oregon Territory, the country west of the Rocky Mountains, between 42 degrees north and 54 degrees 40 minutes north. By 1843, however, the conflicting claims of the American settlers and the British fur traders raised the threat of war between the two powers. The dispute was settled peacefully by the Oregon Treaty, signed on June 15, 1846, which established the boundary along the 49th parallel to saltwater, thence through the Strait of Juan de Fuca to the Pacific Ocean. In 1819, the agreement covered a vast distance from north to south. The 42 degrees would be the northern border of Utah, southern border of Idaho, or somewhere between Cheyenne and Casper, Wyoming. The 54 degrees, 40 minutes, is the north of Edmonton, Alberta. This is a distance of over 800 air miles between the two latitudes. A huge tract of land was involved, and history records many hostile conflicts until the 1846 treaty was signed, making the 49th parallel the legal boundary between the United States and Canada. My old handheld GPS read 49.00191, or as accurate as these gets. Flower gardens graced the main streets and every corner in Blaine. Many homes had large flower gardens. Flowers were in full bloom everywhere. This was a very relaxing town before we headed south on the Pacific Coast Highway.